evening, everybody. I am Sapna Mahadevan, your host for this evening, and we are back with a new genre that we are going to discuss and explore for today, right? It is a new week, a beginning of a new week, and again, a lot of stories that we would want all of you to learn and try putting pen to paper and write all by yourself. Yes. So imagination is key here, and that's why today as well, we need lots of imagination, oodles of it, since we are going to look into the genre which is called fantasy, right? So more about this genre and what is going to be the subcategory as we go ahead with our episode for today. But for now, I would like to really give all of you a very warm welcome into the live here. Thanks a lot for joining. I can see a like here from Tripti Kiran Mungekar. A lot of hellos in the chat box. Angel Hanu, hi there. Lovely to have all of you in today's live episode. Great. I'm looking forward to all the interaction that we are going to have today as well, right? So, yes, with that, let's move ahead into the episode for today. We have the fiction story writing masterclass, and of course we all know that we need to unleash the writer in us and have no limitations whatsoever. Yes, run your imagination wild. Think about all the fantastical elements, all the magical elements that you would want to work for in your story. And of course, it is your story, it is your telling of a particular drama, and you are free to have all of the creative liberty, right? So, I am going to give you some tips and tricks today on how you can be writing a short story in the fantasy genre all by yourself. And the subcategory is something which is really very interesting. Okay, so do stay tuned in here with me as we explore what the subcategory for today is. And let me show the coming up segments. So, specially curated for all of my wonderful bunch of viewers here, we have these activities, gamut of activities, I should say, planned for all of you. So, the first thing that we can see here are the essentials, that is, prerequisites on writing a story, and particularly the one that we are going to explore, the genre that we are going to explore, right? So, we are delving deeper into some of the prerequisites, tips on how you can be enhancing the interest level of your story by including some prerequisites which are really the focus of the story. Of course, we also have plot building pointers which will really help you in engaging your audiences to another level, right? Intensify the level of interest, captivate them by focusing on what should be the exact plot building pointers, right? And apart from that, we have fun segments for you today as well. We have the icebreaker questions coming up every now and then. Then there is a crossword segment where you have to do a little bit of thinking, right? And then, of course, there is the guess the movie segment. There's a recommendation of the day. And today we have a double bonanza. I'm going to talk about one particular movie as a recommendation of the day and also a book, right? So that's the recommendation of the day. There are synonymous words to amplify your vocabulary. And then, of course, before I end the broadcast, I will give you a quick roundup of all the learnings, insights that we have had in today's episode. And it's going to help you in your project work where you take that first step of writing a story in this genre. Yes. So these are the coming up segments. Do stay tuned in here as we progress through the episode. The first segment that we play out here for all of our viewers is the icebreaker question. And the question is, what is your favorite ice cream flavor, right? That's the first question that we have here. And quickly in the chat box, I'm expecting some answers here. Yes. And let me see what all answers do I get here. Iron Bat is one of the handles. And they say, good evening to me. A very good evening to you. Thanks for joining the live here. And cookies is the flavor that they mention out here. Lovely. So ice cream flavor, which is cookies, right? Okay, great to know about that one. And then I get tutti frutti here. That's really lovely. You get that crunchy elements in between. Yes. So cookies, tutti frutti. We have chocolate chip coming up next. Strawberry ice cream flavor. Lovely. Okay. And Anshul says hi. Thanks a lot for all of those emojis there. Great. And I think I have a couple of responses here for the favorite ice cream flavors that you have. Lovely. And one more comment from Dafia, which says nothing in particular, but I love ice cream. Okay. Um, I get that totally with the number of V's that you have in your spelt in your word love. Yes. So you love ice cream, isn't it? Great. Thanks a lot again for all of those answers. And I know all of you really waiting to know about what the genre is. So let me go ahead to the golden question. What's the genre? And as I already told you, it is something which is in fantasy. And fantasy, as we know, it is a piece of fiction. That means that these are not real time stories. These are stories which stem up from the author's imagination, right? So, whatever that you dream of in a story, like whenever we think about writing a story, we always have this thought as to what our story should be like. Yes. So, fantasy is what helps you in this particular thought process. So whatever is it that you look forward to in a story, you can have that written as well in your short story, right? So go for a fantasy genre, and all of the events that you write about in a fantasy genre are going to be outwardly. That means that did not happen in that they do not happen, or they are unlikely to happen in the real world, right? So that's what is fantasy all about. You can of course add in a dash of magic, a pop of suspense as well in your fantasy genre by talking about how that magic works, how it gets activated, and so many other things when you come to think about it, right? So that's the genre here, fantasy. And talking about the subgenre for the day, let me introduce you to another new fresh subgenre in fantasy that we are going to explore for today, which is called the Arthurian fantasy, right? So more about this particular genre. So, as we can understand from the name itself, Arthurian fantasy, it consists of stories which are based on Arthurian legends, and it is always about the character, the legendary character of King Arthur, right? And they form an important part of Britain's national mythology. So that's why they are always legendary in nature. There are a lot of myths as well involved in these kind of stories, and they include tales of war, of tales full of adventure. There is a lot of battles and the marvels and the accomplishments that come from winning these battles, right? And of course there is also an exploration of the conflict between love and duty, right? So if you are aware about King Arthur and some of his famous stories and tales that have been popular in mythology and in legends, then you would understand that these stories are always about the concepts like deception, betrayal, um, love getting lost, and also about brave soldiers, the knights in Arthur's army, 12 of them who were really very special. And also, there was this famous magician called Merlin. He also was a knight in one of those 12 knights in Arthur's kingdom, and a very trustworthy friend and guide for King Arthur, right? So we see that how this whole story of King Arthur can be imbibed into a fantasy story which you write all by yourself. And since it's fictional, you can always take inspiration from these folk tales and give them your own weave and craft it into an interesting story for yourself, right? So do let me know in the chat box if this particular concept interests you. Give me a thumbs up, maybe any show of hand, and I'll get to know that you are liking this particular subgenre for the day, right? So that's about Arthurian fantasy. And as we move ahead, I promise you that you're going to understand more and more about this genre, and you're going to definitely get captivated with King Arthur and his stories, right? So let's move ahead into the next icebreaker segment quickly coming up here. What is your favorite movie is the next question that I have here. So in the chat box, type in your answers and let me know one of your all-time favorite movies, right, from any category that you can think of, any favorite movie that you can keep on watching every time without getting bored, right? Your favorite movie of all times, do let me know in the chat box here. I think most of the fairy tales, most of the fantasy movies are something that we would really like to watch, isn't it? I watch a lot of a lot of fairy tale movies with my kids every now and then. And yes, so I am starting to get comments there. We have Dora come up here, okay? And Dumbo the elephant, okay? Boss baby. Thanks again for all of those answers there. We have Jurassic Park next. So, yes, dinosaurs and their fascination, right? A movie about cars, I forgot the name. Okay. I'm not sure which one you're talking about. Yes, so thanks again for these answers here. Cinderella, great. We also had Cinderella in one of the Saturday special episodes, right? Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs as well. So, some of those famous fairy tale stories that never go, we never get bored of it, right? Those are old time classics. Yes, we have Curly Shine join the live here. Hello there, Curly Shine. Thanks a lot for joining the live. Do let me know which is your favorite movie of all times. And yes, with that, let's move ahead into our next segment. We have establishing the essentials, right? So here are three definite elements that I would like to talk about today while you're writing an Arthurian fantasy. So all of these prerequisites, they are quintessential elements that we really want to focus on while we are writing a story based on legendary King Arthur. Like, all right. So Curly Shine says here, I like emotional type of stories. Okay, great. Lovely to know about that. So yes, I think this genre is perfect for you. King Arthur's folk tales and stories can definitely be categorized into emotions, and a lot of them actually. So yes, so let's move ahead into our essentials and look at what are those three elements that we definitely want to focus on, right? So first things first, we have the characters, and then we have the setting of our story. That means the tone in which the story is set, the ambience of the place, maybe this a particular sense of place that you can give in your story, so that your audience clearly understands and they are able to visualize how that whole scene is playing out as if in front of their own eyes, right? So that's about the setting here. And of course, the third element that we have here is the drama, right? So Curly Shine has another comment there. Voice is so beautiful. Thanks a lot for that compliment there, Curly Shine. I would really love to know your name there so that I can call out your name, right? But yes, thanks a lot again for that compliment here. So let's get back on track and understand what are those essential elements. The first one that I have here are the characters, right? So as we all know, characters are imperative elements in our story. They are really necessary to take the narrative forward. They are kind of like backbones to our stories. And basically, characters, when you think about Arthurian legends, they represent real people from the past, right? So Arthurian legend tells the stories of King Arthur, a fictional British king who was the sovereign of the knights of the round table, right? So that was what it was called, a round table that they always used to do in a place called Camelot. And no one knows exactly where these legends originated from, or even whether King Arthur was a real king or not. So there has been speculation about this here, but there have always been a lot of talk about King Arthur as a legendary king with a lot of charisma and bravery, right? So the way he handled his kingdom was always talked about with praise, right? So that was the legend of King Arthur. We are actually divided on thoughts whether it is a totally fictional story or whether sometime back in the 4th or the 5th century, that is long ago, right? So whether in the 4th or 5th century King Arthur was a real king, and whether these were real stories, so that is a matter of speculation here, right? Now, Latika Bisht is the name behind this handle here, a lovely name, and thanks for typing that out here, Latika. Great. So let me move ahead. So these are, characters that we always speak about in the stories of King Arthur, right? And there are 12 knights that we know of in King Arthur's kingdom who are really special to him. And these stories of King Arthur, they feature many characters whose names sometimes vary from text to text. But some of the famous ones that I would like to call out here would be the wizard who was named Merlin. Then there was the wife of King Arthur, Queen Guinevere. And then there was one of those knights who was King Arthur's famous and trustworthy knight who was called Lancelot. But that is where the whole story plot twisted, and the knight Lancelot, he actually betrayed King Arthur, right? So there are many characters from these legends that are worth considering: knights and queens and kings, priests, also the 12 knights that were special in his kingdom. All of these are important characters in the legend of King Arthur, right? Now these were about the characters. Now let us move ahead to the setting. Yes. So now typically when you think about kings and queens, you are going to of course imagine a lavish lifestyle, a royal mansion somewhere in Britain, right, with lush green surroundings and all the crockery and all the elegance and opulence that you can think of. Yes, so the setting is going to be like that. But on the other hand, we also are going to talk about the battlefields and suburbs and olden cities where battlefield, of course, because war is one of those prerequisite elements that always comes into consideration when we talk about kings and queens. Yes, so think about all of these places as crucial parts of your settings, and give vivid description to your audiences so that they can visualize the setting happening in front of their eyes, as if, right? So these are some of the essentials here. We spoke about the characters and also about the setting. Now let's look at the third element, which is the drama, right? Now there are, I should say, oodles of drama in these kind of stories, because on the one hand we have the brave king Arthur, and all of his depictions, right, that we come to know about from the battlefield. Yes, so we always talk about his bravery, his valiance, right? And on the other hand, we also have a love interest there, and number of stories and pieces of literature, which was written about King Arthur's reign. They became popular, and the most popular and historical story about King Arthur's death was also written as a prose by Thomas Mallory. And that work was first published in 1485. So all of these elements of drama are ingrained in these legends, right? So there is a lot of emotion to do with his tragic death, how the closest of people in his kingdom betrayed him, how his own wife, Guinevere, she had a raging love interest with one of his knights named Lancelot, and how both of them, being closest to King Arthur, betrayed him. And so deception, betrayal, a lot of tragedy, emotional aspects, all of this bring in the much needed drama to these stories. Yes, so even in your stories you can think about all of these pointers that can aid you in bringing about the drama factor to your story, right? Now let me also keep on checking my comment box here. So we have Ramesh Sharma saying hello there. Hi. Lovely, glad to have you in today's episode. Sid Plays is another handle, and Sid tells me that the plot is a series of events. which plot are we talking about here? Sid, I did not get your question there, but let me tell you that today we are talking about one particular subgenre in fantasy, which is called Arthurian fantasy. So these stories are based on legends of King Arthur, and if you check on to all of these subjects here, maybe in Google, then you will get to know a lot of short stories that were famous during King Arthur's reign, and these are really popular stories that gives you a lot of insights, a lot of morals as well, and they are interesting stories. Let me tell you that. So yes, Latika says that it's a pleasure to meet me. Great, although virtually, Latika. Yes, okay, and I really have fun having a conversation going with all of my wonderful bunch of viewers here. So yes, and yes, Latika, I do take live classes or live episodes daily, Monday through Saturday, at 6 p.m. India time. So do join me every day. And yes, so let's get back on track here. We spoke about all of those essentials there, the characters, the setting, the drama element. And now we move ahead to another segment, which is called the synonymage segment, right? Now, let me tell you that the synonymage segment has been introduced into these episodes with the objective of amplifying your vocabulary. So, how it helps is that you can check out all of these words in Google or more traditionally in a dictionary, but do not forget to jot them down in one particular place. Maybe you can call, I love to call that Google It Journal, right? So you can make your fancy journal, be creative as much as you want, name your particular journal and jot down all of these words in one place, right? So in a few weeks, it becomes a ready reckoner of sorts, and you get a whole lot of repository of words which you can be using wherever appropriate into your vocabulary, right? So this is the first word in our synonymous segment today, which is reign. And reign would mean synonyms: rule, govern, or power, right? So synonyms, as you would have understood, only mean to say that they are similar word meanings, right? So the similar word meanings for reign is rule, govern, and power. Okay, and Latika says, I would love to join your classes. Great. Thanks a lot for that. I would look forward to you in each of my episodes, Latika. Do join me. Okay, and let us move ahead into the next segment. Okay, so the next question that we have here in our icebreaker segment: who is your favorite legendary character? So think about it. Any famous characters who, from old times, who were termed as legends in their own rights? So think about it. Who is your favorite legendary character? And do let me know in the chat box here. Um, Let me see what all answers I'm going to get here. Favorite legendary characters. Okay, so Mahatma Gandhi is one legendary character that I get there. An Indian freedom fighter who fought tooth and nail for India's independence. Yes. Okay, and King Arthur himself coming up there. So we are talking about King Arthur's stories today. Yes. Dafia says the King of Troy. Okay, and that's again another wonderful story with a lot of drama as well. Yes. So yes, thanks a lot for all of those characters there. Any other characters come to your mind? Do let me know in the chat box here. Okay, and with that, let me move ahead into our next segment. Okay, and I have Phoenix coming up there. Okay, thanks again for all of those answers. Rani Lakshmi Bai, great. Latika saying Rani Lakshmi Bai, another famous Indian freedom fighter. Okay, so let's move ahead into our next segment. And here we go into the expert tips on establishing the essentials, right? So two expert tips that are I'm going to discuss now with all of you. The first one is that while you want to write a story all by yourself, it will come to you only if you have the habit of reading as well. Yes, so study the classics of the fantasy genre, taking note of what grabs you with each fantasy author's approach. So observe, and observation is one of the key elements here. You need to observe while you're reading each of your favorite fantasy novelists, what is that one thing that glues you onto that story, right? So maybe when you observe all of these elements, be it world building or be it a character development, or how the author has introduced plot twists in their story, all of these elements, then you can probably think of what is that a mixture of elements that you would want to focus on while you're writing a story. Yes, so you can reread your favorite fantasy books while applying the same lens, and applying and imbibing those same characteristic traits to your story as well. That's the first expert tip here. Inculcate the habit of reading if you want to write by yourself. Yes. Now, the second element that we have here is that a fantasy novel or a series, whatever it is, it can play out in a third person narrative as well, via a narrator or a first person through the eyes of one character who has dealt with all of those experiences firsthand, right? So, whatever is the approach that you're going to take, while the first approach, where it is in a third person view, the first approach lets you dole out the details however you please, allowing your characters to lead. Allowing your characters to, of course, lead from the front, whereas your readers will discover the world as they do, building in suspense and surprise, right? So there is a difference between the third person view and the first person view. Yes. So think about it even before you start writing your story as to which is the narrative that you want to follow for your story. Yes. And that was the second expert tip. And now let me move ahead to the next synonymous word, which is approach. Yes. So approach will have synonyms: address, proposal, or preposition, right? So what you can be doing here is check out the words in Google, look out for the meanings and the way that they are interpreted, and then you can probably understand how you can be placing them in your words, or your structure of sentences, how you can be using those words in your vocabulary. It's something that you can understand from the way the words get interpreted, right? So the second word in our synonymous segment is approach, which also means address, proposal, and preposition. Yes. Now, with that, we come to the next icebreaker question. Shruti was asking me for the next icebreaker question, and there it is: your favorite cartoon show. So go ahead and type out your answers rather in the chat box here. Do let me know what is, or which one is your favorite cartoon show. Okay, waiting for some of your answers here. Okay, Small Wonder coming up there. Great. I think, where do you watch that? Latika says Shinchan and Merculus. Okay, great. Dafia says Small Wonder, and those were old episodes. I don't know if there are newer episodes as well, but Small Wonder is really a fun shows, I would say, series. It's not, of course, not a cartoon show, but yes, wonderful series. YouTube, okay, great. Lego coming up there. That's Lego, yes. And what else? We have SpongeBob and SquarePants, great. Octonauts, lovely. So, Octonauts on their own spaceship, right? Great. So, thanks again for all of those answers. And now let's move ahead to one of the fun segments here, which is the movie title trivia. Okay. So, what you need to do here is, I'm going to show you some pictures from the next slide, and you need to guess these popular Arthurian movie titles. Yes. So, best of luck, Nikki. Yes, that's also a wonderful one. Thanks a lot for bringing that up, Latika. Great. So, yes, a lot of cartoon shows and series coming up here. Great. And let's move ahead to our fun segment, which is the movie title trivia. The first picture playing up on my screen here. These are all Arthurian movies. That means that they are based on the legends of King Arthur. Do let me know if you can guess the name of the movie here. Okay, don't know is the answer coming up there. So let me reveal that one. It is called Excalibur. And now for the next one. So again, all of those famous elements that we can see here. Okay, so another one here. I'm going to reveal the answer. It is called Arthur and Merlin, Knights of Camelot, right? So yes, let me again also when this has come up here, most scholars they regard it as being entirely fictional. All of these legends of Arthur, but there are many locations that have been linked with King Arthur's Camelot, right? And Camelot, let me tell you, it was a place where the king held court, and it was the location of the famous round table that happened between the king and his knights. Yes. So and all of this early reference to this place has happened in poetry dating from around 594 AD. So that was long back ago, right? The fifth and the sixth, or fourth and the fifth century. Yes. So that was what Camelot was. It was a place where the king used to have his famous, round table. Yes, and he held court there. So yes, since that came up in this movie title, um, another famous setting or location in the Legends of King Arthur. Now let's move back again to the next movie here. There is the third picture that we have. Can you guess the name of this movie? The Green Knight is the name of this movie here. And now for the next one. So, yes, this one is Knights of the Round Table. Yeah, we heard about this a lot of times in today's episode. Yes, so let me show you the last one for the day. Brace yourselves. Here it is. What is the name of this movie? This one's purely fantasy. And let me showcase this one to you. It is Disney's famous movie, A Kid in King Arthur's Court. And this is a magical tale of how a boy who goes back in time and he becomes a hero, right? So that's again, that's a recommendation for the day as well. Yes, A Kid in King Arthur's Court, an interesting movie. And now let's move ahead into our plot building pointers. And let me again discuss three important plot building pointers that you can use while you're writing an engaging Arthurian fantasy story. Yes. So let me first showcase all of those three elements there. We have the conflict, which is a writer's main tool. We always want to have a conflict in our story to keep the drama going. And then, of course, we have to look at the elements of fantasy, because this is a story which is going to be based largely on fantasy. And then there is the resolution, that is, how does the story get its closure. Yes. Now the first element that we have here is the conflict, and as we all know, it is one of the driving forces of the plot. And as creative writers, mastering how we can be writing a conflict in our story is something which is really integral to our creative writing process. Yes. So here in this story, one of the main conflicts in Arthurian fantasies is that Arthur's half sister threatens Camelot and Arthur with sorcery, right? And Camelot, after facing many battles to protect his throne, Arthur must defend his throne. That must be Lancelot, I believe, and prove that he is worthy of leading England. Right now, he battles all of the world, nearly fails, but for the aid of Merlin's magic. So we spoke about how Merlin was a magician and also one of the knights in King Arthur's kingdom. One of the other conflicts that I can think of here is the treachery that the queen undertook, right? So that is his wife, Guinevere, and one of his knights, Lancelot, both of them fell into a raging love affair, and that also brought about the conflict in our story, right? And that was one of the main plot twists which led to the tragic demise of the king as well. Yes, so we always hear through history and through legends that King Arthur, although a brave and a soldier full of valor, a king who led his kingdom from the front, and all of his countrymen were really pleased with the way he led his kingdom. But when it came to matters of the heart, when it came to trusting and believing and having faith in his closest of people, King Arthur was always deceived and betrayed, right? So those were the conflicts that we can think of in the legends of King Arthur. And elements of fantasy that you can think about are what are the magical elements that you can keep or introduce into your story: the crown, the prestigious lifestyles, the grace and poise, maybe the sparkling love between prince and princesses, courtly romances, awe-inspiring parties with various dance forms, ball dances, walls. All of these elements are of fantasies, right? The knights with in charming shining armor, and think about battlefields, epic battlefields. That too, think about the swords and all of the other things that they used in their warfare, archery, horse ridings. All of these elements will add that flavor of fantasy into your story. Yes, so think about all of these elements, have a clear visualization of how your story is going to take shape, and that is what is going to write about all of these elements and introduce them into your plot as well successfully. Yes, so elements of fantasy, you can think about the battlefield, the archery, the love interest, uh, all the opulence, and the sparkle that you can think about in a royal mansion, right? So all of these fantastical elements can form a part of your story. And of course, apart from that, we come to the resolution as the third plot building pointer, and this is called the denouement of a story, where the story gets its final conclusion. We derive a closure to the book, right? And all of the unanswered questions get answered, and finally the audiences get a climax for our story, right? So the resolution uh, would really depend on how you want to give it shape. So, as a creative writer, think about if the battles are won, whether love succeeds or not, whether the magic works or not, and whether there is a wave of happiness once again in the streets of the kingdom, right? So, this is again totally dependent on you as a creative writer. What is the resolution that you would want to have for your story? But generally, these stories, Arthurian stories, although there was a lot of tragedy involved in it, it always has a happy ending, right? Some kind of a satisfying ending, right? Now, after all of these plot building pointers, let me move ahead to the next synonym segment, which is we have the word battles. And the synonyms for the word battle could be war, that is conflict, and clash, right? So yes, this the with this we come to the end of all of those synonymous segments, and we saw three words for today, right? The last one being battles. And now I'm going to move ahead to the recommendation of the day, right? So as I told you, it is a double bonanza for today. One of them is a recommendation of a series which is called Cursed, and another one is a book, and it also is based on the subject that we spoke about today, Sir Thomas Malory, King, written by him. And the name of the book is King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, right? So that is the recommendation of the day in books and series is Cursed. And with that, let me move ahead to the expert tips in plotting the plot, right? So now that we know what are the elements that we should be focusing on, what are the quintessentials, and how we can give an engaging and absorbing read to our audiences, let's also understand two more expert tips which are going to help you in your creative writing process. Yes, so If you talk about epic fantasy, then it has to be grounded in its own reality so that it feels believable and credible. Yes. So if this is going to be your first try, your first attempt at writing a fiction, then consider researching some societal basics like maybe politics and economics, and how the world, or how it worked when there were kingdoms and monarchs. Ask obvious questions like, where do rivers come from? Even you can think of how the magic happens, how magic systems can be incorporated into your story, and that forms a basis of the plot pointers that you're going to introduce into your story, right? So whatever it is that you're going to write in your story, whatever is the theme of your story, keep it plausible and reasonable for your audiences, right? That's the first expert tip. And then the second expert tip that we have out for all of my viewers here is that your characters, they could have different attributes, different styles of speech, they could have different moods and motivations as well. They could come from different cultural origins, different civilizations. Rather than cramming unnatural amounts of exposition into the conversation, what you can do is you can use action to advance the plot while treating dialogue delivery as an opportunity to talk about your narrative, to convey a better sense of who your characters are. Yes. So do not cram a lot of unnatural amount of speech into your story. Keep it natural, keep it flowing, keep the dialogue flowing with between characters. And you can think of how the dialogue delivery will help in conveying a better sense of who your characters are in the story, right? So these were all of the expert tips that we had for you, for taking that first initial step in trying to write a story all by yourself. And now we move ahead to, okay, so there is another synonymous word that we have, which is cram, right? So when I say do not cram all of these dialogues into your stories, so cram means stuff, pack, or jam. Those are other words that you can be using interchangeably for cram, right? And I'm going to just give me a second. So yes, so the word cram would mean stuff something in so much so that it overflows, right? So that's the meaning of the word cram. Do Google out that word, and the synonyms are stuff, pack, or jam, right? Now, it was an interesting live. Thanks a lot for that, Dafia, and great, lovely to know that you are all liking these episodes that we have aired in PSTV Live. And if you have any other suggestions, do let me know in the chat box here. Your feedback is really valuable, right? And now I move ahead to the last segment for the day, which is a fun segment. It is called Locate the Words. And I have a letter maze here in front of all of you here on the screen. And what you need to do here is find out all the hidden words that you can see in this particular letter maze. These words could be written diagonally, horizontally, or vertically. Give me those words in the chat box quickly, and let me see who has the early bird here. Um, Latika says, "Ma'am, I wish you were my school teacher." Oh, that's so sweet, Latika. Thanks a lot. That's a compliment that I am going to really cherish. You are a better explainer. Thanks a lot for that, Latika. Great. And yes, quickly in the chat box, do let me know all the words that you can find. I'm really overwhelmed with that compliment there. Thanks a lot. Okay. And Latika says queen. That's correct. So Latika is our early bird here, giving me the first response, queen. What are the other words? And yes, the hint, I forgot to give you that hint here, that all of those words are going to be from today's episode. They are going to be linked, right? So think about the synonymous words, think about the characters maybe, and you're going to get your words. Word is not the correct answer that we are looking at. You're missing a letter there, Latika. Think of one more letter that you can add on to that, and then it's going to form a word that is related to Arthurian legends. Arthur, that is correct. That is another word, of course. Okay. Sword, that is correct. Yes. Sulatika, you missed an S. And okay, so let me reveal all of those answers there. Thanks a lot for attempting. All of those are correct answers. And the first one that we have here is Arthur. And then, of course, we have drama, magic, queen, and the last one is sword, right? So magic and drama are the two words that we missed. Yes, so these are the five words that we had in our crossword segment, and I hope you had fun watching this episode. And before I end the broadcast, I'm going to give you a quick roundup of all the insights that we had in today's episode, and this segment is called At a Glance. So yes, Latika, I got your answer a bit late, but drama is correct. And let's move ahead. First things first, we had the essentials. So we speak about all the characters in the stories of King Arthur. The setting is going to be all the places that you can imagine, the royal mansion, the epic battles that have been fought. So you're going to think about the tragic battlefields as well. And the drama is going to come from betrayal and love interests, and also from all of those fantasy elements that you're going to add to your story, right? So these were the essentials. And now the plot building pointers, we saw what were the conflicts in the story, the elements of fantasy, and how finally we get the denouement of the story, right? Now, I also have one of the project work here. Aditya, thanks for joining the live, but you're a bit late. If you have been watching me, then that's great. But if you have just joined the live, then I think you need to join these live episodes every day at 6 p.m. India time. So do remember the time. And great. So, yes, we have this project work here. So, if you have been listening out to me from the start of the episode, then try writing this draft of your first Arthurian fantasy story. Even if not, you can, of course, replay that video there and check out for all the learnings that we had from this episode of Arthurian fantasy, and try writing one by yourself. Yes. Now, let me tell you what we have next for tomorrow. It is going to be thriller and suspense as the broader genre. And until I meet you next tomorrow at 6 p.m. India time, I would like all of you to take good care of yourselves, have a happy time, and keep smiling. Yes. And any other suggestions, feedback, anything that you have for me, do write to me in the chat box here. I would most definitely check out for all of your responses there. And we would meet tomorrow again at 6 p.m. India time with another engaging and interesting episode. And let's have another conversation going. Yes. So I am Sapna Mahadevan signing out for today. Bye bye.